Alright, this is a build overview for 3.13 Molten Strike Raider Full Lightning. And I was inspired to make this build after looking at builds on P.O.E.Ninja. I was looking for what kind of build uses the Aegis Aurora Shield. And I looked around and I found that there was a Raider and they were playing Flicker Strike, and I was like, "Oh, cool!" So I actually played Flicker Strike for a while. The DPS, the clear was amazing. The DPS was just for a single target was just okay, and then I for a while then played Flicker Strike and Frenzy, where I just swapped armor pieces. One setup with Flicker Strike, one setup with um, Frenzy, and so I did Frenzy and single target, and it was okay, single target. And I finally came to the conclusion, let's try Molten Strike. And this by far does a lot more DPS than Frenzy and Flicker Strike when it comes to single target. So we settled with Molten Strike. So the build is a Raider. The name is Roxy Andrews with three X's. And she's here to make it clear. Just kidding. So shout out to Roxy Andrews from RuPaul's Drag Race. And we are at about 5,000 energy shield. Right there it says I have 45,000 armor. As soon as I get hit, I actually have over 100,000 armor because we've picked up Wind Dancer on the passive tree. And so that gives us a large amount of physical damage reduction. At rest here, we're at 79% physical damage reduction. As soon as I get hit, I go to 89% physical damage reduction because my armor shoots up to over 100,000. And with flasks, it goes up by a lot, so even more. Um, and I believe the calculation with my flasks and after I've been hit is over 200,000 armor. So it's a lot of armor, and I'll tell you why we're stacking armor in a minute here. You'll see that my lightning resistances are negative, and that's because this armor piece, Doryani's prototype, the way it works is nearby enemies have lightning resistance equal to yours, and so we want to stack up a lot of negative lightning resistance so nearby enemies have negative lightning resistance, and that way we do a lot more damage to them. It also says deals no non-lightning damage, and that means that you can only deal lightning damage. And so, since we have negative resistances, we have to mitigate a lot of lightning damage, and the way we do that is through lots of armor, because the thing here it says armor also applies to lightning damage taken from hits. Um, and then the other line on here says lightning resistance does not affect lightning damage taken. So essentially, what that means is you really have like zero lightning resistance. Even though it says negative, you really have zero, since lightning resistance doesn't affect lightning damage taken. So when you stack up a lot of armor, you hardly take lightning damage. The only issue I've had with this so far is in the Syndicate research labs, there are those red lasers, and they do lightning damage over time, and those will drain you and kill you very fast. So you have to be careful when you're navigating through those areas, because those will kill you pretty darn fast, because those do take account in your negative lightning resistance. So that is one of the downsides of this. Is anytime you do happen to run into a situation where there's lightning damage over time, which is not fair because this game isn't even supposed to have lightning damage over time. Anyway, so this build is not min maxed by any means. If you looked at the Flicker Strike build on PoE Ninja that I originally looked at with the Doryani prototype armor, it is definitely a lot more min maxed with very, very high end gear that costs several exalts, even mirrors worth of items. So, let's talk about some of these gear pieces first. So, again, this Doryani prototype, which makes it again so that the enemies have lightning resistance equal to ours. And so the Aegis Aurora shield, it says that you replenish 2% energy shield, replenish energy shield by 2% of armor when you block. And again, with flasks and if I've been hit recently with Wind Dancer, I have over 200,000 energy shield, and so I recover 2% of that when I block. I don't have max spell block yet. When I have Tempest Shield up, I have about 64% chance for spell block, and but I do have max attack block, so it's still pretty reliable and really tanky. And so that fact, so originally you're like, how you have such a low energy shield pool, how do you survive? And it's really because we have large amounts of mitigation through armor, and because we also replenish energy shield as armor. And on my shield here, I bought an implicit with spell block chance. It's not a maxed rolled, but those seem to be going for very expensive. So yeah. Um, for a weapon, we're using the Hand of Wisdom in action. So this build is also intelligence stacking. And so with this weapon, you get 1 to 10 lightning damage to attacks per 10 intelligence. And so currently we're sitting at 1539 intelligence. And again, the intelligence gives us lightning damage, and it also happens to give us a fair amount of energy shield. The gloves, we are using Shaper's Touch. This gives us a lot of accuracy rating because we have a lot of intelligence. And it also gives us a little bit of a boost to our energy shield, a lot to our evasion because it's 2% evasion rating per 10 intelligence. And we are using iron reflexes on the passive tree, so all that evasion we get gets converted to armor, and that's why we have so much armor in this build. So lots of conversion things going on here. And we bought this one with maximum frenzy charges. It's pretty easy to get one of maximum frenzy charges. Ideally, I'd also like maybe temp chains on hit, a double corruption or something, but haven't found one on the market yet. I don't think there's a whole lot of people who are corrupting Shaper's trying to double corrupt Shaper's touches. So, for our amulet, we are using Astramentus, and we have a Tribal Fury anointed on here. So Tribal Fury strikes one additional target nearby, and with Molten Strike, that means that Molten Strike has then become more of a clear skill. We're not using Ancestral Call on Molten Strike, so this little Tribal Fury essentially makes it so we, in a way, have Ancestral Call and helps us with clear. I do also sometimes cheat with the Tribal Fury because I will drop a Hydrosphere nearby a boss, and so the Tribal Fury will also target the Hydrosphere, and so it drops more balls on a boss for more DPS. Um, the rare gear I have, this helmet, I just bought the enchant, and I bought it on a Hubris Circlet with Crusader influence, and then I spammed deafening essences of spite until I got an intelligence percentage roll. It's not even a max roll, unfortunately, but we'll take it. Deafening essences of spite are a little expensive right now. They're about 10 to 12 chaos per essence, so I only buy a few at a time and tried, and I was like, hey, good enough for now. So that's what we're using here. It does have a little bit of accuracy rating. For our belt, a friend gave me this belt. It has an implicit of increased intelligence percentage. We made sure to give it attribute quality catalysts on there, and just spammed again deafening essences of spite until I got at least one resist, and I actually just happened to hit energy shield as well. For my boots, we are using these Storm Rider boots, and they are new to the league. They give 1 to 6 added attack lightning damage per 200 accuracy. And so we are currently at, I think, 4,400 accuracy. Nope, looks like 500, 5,400. So that gives a little bit of extra lightning damage there. We again spammed with deafening instances of spite until we got some resistances. I just crafted movement speed. Ideally, I would have hit movement speed and then crafted cannot be frozen. Downside of playing Raider is that you're susceptible to effects like elemental ailments, bleeding, and stuff like that. So you have to find places to mitigate those things. And so right now we're doing it through flasks, which I'll show you in a bit. For our rings, we just picked up stuff with intelligence, lots of resistances, and again, we only want fire and cold resistances because we want negative lightning resistances. And so that's what we got here. For our flasks, we got a granite flask and a jade flask with increased evasion and armor effect, again, so that we can stack a lot of armor for mitigation. We have a dying sun flask for more projectiles from Molten Strike. Sulfur flask. I just couldn't figure out another flask. I just wanted a flask with no bleeding, so that's what we got there. And I don't have an adrenaline flask for my Quicksilver. I have a freeze flask because we don't have any way to mitigate freeze. So that's what I have there. But we're raiders, so we move fast anyway, especially at maximum frenzy charges. So yeah. For the skill gem links, we have a divergent molten strike, and with the divergent version, it gives extra melee strike range for quality, and so that just helps. I've only been playing this build for a few hours. Like I played the flicker strike and I played the frenzy, but I really just started playing the molten strike for a few hours, and it feels great already, especially for single target. And so, still leveling this up, I bought it at level 17, and that's attached to LE Focus for more elemental damage, damage on full life since we're CI, multi strike, conk effect, and the reason why I want conk effect is so that the balls from the molten strike don't travel as far, and so they group closer together, so more balls are hitting enemies, and then elemental damage with attacks. Here in our helmet, we have sigil power, and what this does is it drops this sigil, and when you start spending mana within the sigil power, it's going to add lightning damage to you based on how many stages it gets. Um, that's a nice little buff there. We have a precision aura, just for a little bit of accuracy. Um, Flat accuracy again, so we get a little bit more lightning damage. We have determination and grace because grace is all the evasion from grace is converted to armor, and so then we need determination for more armor because we're using iron reflexes. We have a cast from damage taken with molten shell and ice golem, so that way we don't have to worry about casting ice golem. Molten shell works best in this situation because we have a lot of armor, and molten shell buff scales off of armor. We also have Val molten shell. In my gloves, we have whirling blades with fortify support. I think this is the one downside of having to switch over from like a flicker strike and frenzy to molten strike is that fortify support doesn't support the projectile attack from molten strike. So then we have to get fortify somewhere else. So I went with whirling blades, and we have that attached to rage support and reckoning. And so when we're mapping and we're using whirling blades, every time we hit an enemy, we're going to get a rage. Every time we block and do reckoning, we're going to get a rage. So when I'm doing mapping and there's pretty good packs of monsters, I can sustain about 30 or 40 stacks of rage um, comfortably. Um, and on bosses, I use a little trick to stack rage and frenzy charges before I fight bosses, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute with my weapon swap. In my boots here, I have a cast when damage taken, linked to Divergent Purifying Flame, and the thing is, we don't really need a curse with this build. A curse that lowers an enemy's resistances won't do anything for this build because the armor's piece, the Doryani prototype, says that enemies have your lightning resistance. That means that can't be altered through curses or anything. So then we have to find other ways to stack more damage, and this is just one way, is to use our Divergent Purifying Flame. This says Consecrated Ground applies 5% increased damage taken to enemies. And then we also have a Tempest Shield just to give us a little bit more spell block chance when we take some damage. And we have also a Discipline Aura here. Um, and we're running Ancestral Protector for more attack speed. We just have that set up with multi-totem support, so it drops 2 totems. And then we have a Hydrosphere, and again, the little trick here with Hydrosphere is that you can target the Hydrosphere. And so when you're fighting a boss, you can both target the boss and the Hydrosphere because we're using Tribal Fury, and so it's like it drops more of those balls, the Molten Strike balls that can kind of shotgun an enemy. Um, Let me know if I'm wrong about that and if it really can't shotgun. But anyway, here's the passive tree. It goes really far around because we're a raider, but we're trying to get all the way around so that we can pick up glancing blows. And so we pick up iron reflexes, frenzy charges, point blank, so that the molten strike balls do more damage. We have an attack cluster with mana leech. The other two really don't matter. Oh, I happen to have a block chance and a spell block chance right here that really helps. And then I'll talk about the medium clusters in a bit. Those are pretty important as well. But then I got a Watcher's Eye with more spell block chance. We're using Fertile Mines so that we can convert dexterity on the tree into intelligence, since we're stacking intelligence. We're just running another Fertile Mind right here for more intelligence, picking up Frenzy charges, picking up Ghost Reaver because we don't need the Leech Life, but we do need the Leech Energy Shield because we are Chaos Inoculation, where we only have 1 life, but we're immune to Chaos damage. Um, Here we are picking up some spell block. We put a Thread of Hope here, and you want a Thread of Hope with a -20 to all resistances because, again, this is how we're lowering our lightning resistances more so that we can do more damage to enemies near us. And also with this, we can pick up some passives that are connected to the tree. So we got this one, Utmost Intellect. This gives us a big intelligence boost. Heart of Thunder. This gives us a little bit of leech and lightning damage, and then Deep Wisdom here just for energy shield and intelligence. Really, we are non-crit, so we pick up Elemental Overload here for more elemental damage when we do crit. Um, and since we're not crit in this large cluster, it's really important to get a lightning large cluster with supercharge, and that makes it so lightning damage with non-critical strikes is lucky. The thing about lightning damage is it has a really big range of damage. Uh, it has the biggest range of damage. It's either really low or really high, and so that lightning damage is the most inconsistent. But with supercharge, what happens is, what lucky means is it'll roll 2 numbers. Like it'll roll a damage number twice, and then it'll take the higher of the two. And so this really helps to mitigate the lower rolls of lightning damage that you're doing. We just have this paralysis stun thing here. Just extra lightning damage. We are running split personalities with strength and intelligence. The strength gives us a little bit more energy shield because we're wearing the Shaper's Touch. And of course, we just need the intelligence. If you look very carefully at how I use this large cluster, I made sure to go take the long way around so that this split personality just gives a little bit more here. Pick up Zealot's Oath for energy shield regen instead of life regen. We're not getting much regen, except for when we are on consecrated ground, so that does help from using our sulfur flask. We're using a brute force solution here for more intelligence, and it also converts some of the strength nodes nearby into intelligence. This would probably be the next point to pick up. It would be the 20 intelligence right here. And then we are running a Thread of Hope here. Ideally, this would be a -20 resistance Thread of Hope, and then so we can pick up Glancing Blows and Unwavering Stance. We don't care about getting hit. We like getting hit because then we can block, and when we block, we recover energy shield. And again, we're Raider. We picked up Onslaught and Onslaught effect, and then we pick up the Frenzy charge um, notes here. And Avatar Slaughter, this one does a lot. It says 10% increase evasion rating per Frenzy charge. Remember, we're stacking a lot of evasion that gets converted to armor, and right now we're at a maximum of 8 Frenzy charges. Movement speed, attack speed per Frenzy charge, and increased attack damage per Frenzy charge. So that's a lot happening right there. Um, so before I wrap up this build, I'm going to show you this little trick that you can use before boss fights to prepare to stack your rage and to stack your frenzy charges. So I just have a weapon swap, and I just found like, okay, what's the fastest unique weapon? Okay, is there a shield that will increase my attack speed? Cool. All right, and then we're just gonna put a Hydrosphere, and then we're gonna use a chain hook with rage support to start stacking. What? Come on, there you go. Start stacking rage. Okay, and you can also hit it with the frenzy attack to start stacking your frenzy charges. And so you can set this up before a boss fight and run to a boss fight with rage stacks and frenzy charges. And so that's a really effective technique. And then just weapon spot back, and then you have these buffs for a while. Yeah, so that's a little hack to prepare for bosses, so you don't have to try to stack everything. And there really is no way. Well, unless you have a lethal pride, I just couldn't figure out where to put a lethal pride on this tree, where there's a keystone, so that I could have maximum rage. So, but that way you can start a fight with maximum rage, and rage is going to give you attack speed and attack damage. So, um, and yeah, so I did an Awakener 8 fight, um, and I died once from being dumb um, and jumping into an on ground effect. But other than that, the single target DPS, like I said, is pretty good. It's it's not a one shot, but it's pretty good, and I could tank a few die beams a few times. So enjoy the video of me killing Awakener 8, and thanks for watching this video. Bye!